Sometimes you hear a story that just sounds completely unbelievable, like something straight out of a movie script.
Absolutely.
And the 1MDB scandal is definitely one of those. We're talking about a financial fraud so huge, so audacious. The stolen money wasn't just buying, mansions and jets. It was apparently funding Hollywood blockbusters, bankrolling these insane A-lister lifestyles. It's almost too much.
It really is cinematic in its scope, and that's what we're diving into today. This whole 1MDB saga, One Malaysia Development Berhad, it's this massive global financial mess that connects sovereign wealth funds to, well, the Hollywood red carpet.
Right.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how the story of Jho Low, he's the fugitive figure sort of at the center of it all, how his story pulls together global finance, pop culture, Malaysian politics, and importantly, the really delicate subject of ethnic relations in Malaysia.
Okay, so that's our mission for you today in this deep dive. We're going to try and unpack the sheer scale of this thing, trace how it connects to perceptions of ethnic Chinese influence and, frankly, stereotypes, and look at the deep impact it's had on Malaysia's multi-ethnic society, particularly around issues like income inequality.
Yeah.
And we have to start with the latest, right? These persistent reports about Jho Low's whereabouts. Specifically, the claims he might be hiding out in Shanghai, in China.
Right. And just to be clear, as of late July 2025, Malaysia's Home Minister said there's no credible proof of exactly where he is or if he's used a passport, and China denies sheltering him.
But the investigation continues.
Oh, yeah. International cooperation is ongoing. But, I mean, it really makes you wonder, how on earth did a scandal this big even get started?
Exactly. Let's try and unpack that. So 1MDB began with, well, seemingly good intentions, didn't it? A sovereign wealth fund.
That was the idea. Manage oil royalties, fund national development,
Right.
Build infrastructure, boost the economy.
But somewhere along the line, it allegedly turned into this giant siphon to quietly drain away billions. Just how much money are we talking about, and how did they allegedly do it?
Well, the numbers are just staggering. The allegations point to over $4 billion being misappropriated. $4 billion.
Wow.
And the method, it was incredibly complex. A really dense network of shell companies, layers upon layers of opaque legal structures, designed specifically to hide who really owned what and where the money was flowing.
Clever in a dark way.
Very. They even used names designed to sound legitimate, like BlackRock Asia, which sounds official, but had zero connection to the actual BlackRock investment firm. It created this veneer of credibility, made it harder to spot initially.
So using legitimate-sounding names, these shell companies, It was a sophisticated operation. But, okay, if stealing billions sounds like a movie plot, the way the money was spent, that's where it feels like pure Hollywood spectacle. What were some of the most, I guess, outrageous examples?
Oh, the spending was, it's almost hard to believe, like beyond extravagant. Sources talk about, tens of millions dropped in a single night in Vegas.
Tens of millions.
In one night.
Yeah. And things like a champagne competition and a nightclub that reportedly cost $2 million. Just burning cash.
Yeah.
Flying around the world to hit New Year's Eve multiple times in different time zones. Jho Low's 31st birthday in Vegas was apparently legendary, called the wildest party Vegas had ever seen. Just pure excess.
A $2 million champagne competition. It's almost parodied.
Right.
And it wasn't just about buying stuff, was it? It feels like it was also about buying access, buying connections, getting into those elite circles.
Absolutely. That seems to be a huge part of it. I mean, Jho Low allegedly plowed $100 million into the movie The Wolf of Wall Street.
Seriously, that movie.
Yeah, through Red Granite Pictures. That company was co-founded by Najib Razak's stepson, Reza Aziz. Remember Leonardo DiCaprio even thanked Low publicly at an award show? Though, the U.S. government later seized the film's profits.
Incredible. And then there were the parties. Models reportedly paid thousands, just appearance fees, just to be there. Supermodel Miranda Kerr was allegedly given something like $8 million in diamond jewelry by Low. She later handed it over to the U.S. government, but still.
Wow.
And some sources describe this almost desperate need. Low seemed to have to be liked, to be respected, using the stolen money as his calling card, his entry ticket.
And the ultimate symbol of all that wealth, all that audacity, it has to be the super yacht, right? The equanimity.
Oh, absolutely. That yacht. It was more than just a boat. It was this huge, glittering symbol sailing around the world. A floating palace, they called it.
Paid for with.
Allegedly paid for with money stolen directly from a fund meant to help ordinary Malaysians. You can't get much more brazen than that. Its image just screams scandal.
And Malaysia eventually got it back.
They did, yeah, after a pretty complex international legal fight. Seized it, and eventually sold it off to a casino operator. A sort of ironic end, maybe.
A chilling symbol, as you said. But, okay, this level of spending, this audacity, it couldn't stay hidden forever. How did it all start to unravel? Were there warning signs inside Malaysia earlier on? Maybe things that were missed or ignored?
Oh, looking back, the signs were definitely there. And yes, it seems they were actively suppressed. Even back in 2013, one MDB asked for a 6-month delay to file its annual report. That's really unusual for a major state fund, a big red flag.
Okay.
Then, fast forward to 2015, news outlets like the Edge Malaysia and the Edge Financial Daily, they were suspended for 3 months. Why? For allegedly publishing false reports about 1MDB.
So punish the messenger.
Seems like it. Investigative websites like Sarawak Report got blocked by the government communications body. They even issued an arrest warrant for its editor, Claire Rucastle-Brown.
Wow. So a real clampdown.
A serious clampdown. And tellingly, those blocks, those suspensions, they were only lifted after the government changed in the 2018 election, after Najib Razak lost power. That speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the effort to keep a lid on things. It really damaged public trust. People felt silenced.
Definitely. So speaking of Najib Razak, the former prime minister,
Yeah.
what was his defense throughout all the trials? How did he explain his connection to these missing billions?
His defense, consistently, was that he basically didn't know the money was illicit. He maintained he thought the funds landing in his accounts were legitimate donations, specifically from the Saudi royal family.
Donations. Billions in donations.
That was the claim. He argued he was misled, manipulated, essentially framed by people like Jho Low and others within 1MDB and its orbit.
But the courts didn't buy it.
Ultimately, no. Despite all the appeals, Malaysia's highest court, the federal court, upheld his conviction. Abuse of power, criminal breach of trust that's misusing funds you're responsible for, and money laundering, all related to 1MDB funds. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison.
And his wife was implicated too.
Yes, Rosma Mansur. Reports suggested she gave Jho Low effectively complete access to the corridors of power. So the connections went right to the top.
Okay, this is where things get even more layered, right? Let's talk about Jho Low's identity as an ethnic Chinese Malaysian and China's alleged role.
Yeah.
How did all that intersect with Malaysia's internal politics and those ethnic sensitivities?
Right, this is a really crucial dimension. There are pretty serious allegations about China's role, not just about Jho Low potentially hiding there now, but earlier on. Allegations that China essentially helped bail out 1MDB after the money went missing.
Bailed them out. Why?
Well, the quid pro quo, allegedly, was that Chinese state-owned companies got awarded major infrastructure projects in Malaysia, often on very favorable terms, possibly at inflated prices. Think railways, pipelines.
So this became a huge political issue within Malaysia, tied into anxieties about foreign influence.
A massive issue. The Najib administration was seen as actively encouraging this Chinese investment, sometimes leveraging connections with coalition partners like the MCA, the Malaysian Chinese Association.
Which represents ethnic Chinese Malaysians.
Exactly. It got to the point where Chinese officials were seen so often with the ruling coalition politicians that the Chinese embassy actually had to put out a statement denying they were favoring one side in the 2018 election.
Avoid something.
It really fueled public discontent, concerns about sovereignty, about debt, about the systemic corruption it seemed to enable. Najib's perceived reliance on this Chinese state financing became a major liability.
And then, after Najib lost the 2018 election, the new government under Mahathir Mohamad, they pushed back.
They did. Mahathir specifically tried to review and even reverse some of those big infrastructure deals with China. He was very vocal about the risks, about Malaysia potentially losing sovereignty. He even made controversial comments about a huge Chinese-backed property development, Forest City, calling it potentially a foreign enclave.
Strong words.
Very strong. And into this mix, you have Jho Low himself, an ethnic Chinese Malaysian figure operating right at the heart of what was traditionally seen as the Malay political and business elites domain. That alone tapped into existing sensitivities in Malaysia's very delicate ethnic balance.
And that brings us back to those reports, true or not,
Yeah.
about him being in Shanghai. It just fuels that narrative, doesn't it, of Chinese ties, maybe even protection.
Exactly. Whether it's accurate or not, the perception is powerful, especially given the context. It reinforces anxieties for some Malaysians.
So let's broaden out. What does this whole scandal, especially with Jho Low's background and the China angle, tell us about the wider picture of ethnic relations and income inequality in Malaysia? Because these seem deeply connected.
They really are. Look, the 1MDB scandal didn't create these tensions, but it absolutely poured fuel on the fire. It amplified issues that were already there, simmering under the surface.
And those issues have deep historical roots.
It's very deep. You have to go back to the colonial era. The British basically implemented policies that segregated communities and gave preferential status, political, economic, to the Malays, designated as chosen natives. This placed them, in theory, above the Chinese and Indian communities who were brought in or encouraged to immigrate for labor.
And then World War II.
The Japanese occupation made things worse. Chinese communities heavily resisted the Japanese, and this resistance sometimes spilled over into ethnic conflict between Chinese and Malays. It deepened the mistrust.
So this history created long-lasting economic divides.
Precisely. That widening economic gap between Malay and Chinese communities is seen as a major underlying cause of later conflicts, like the really serious race riots in 1969.
What did that gap look like statistically?
Well, figures from 1970 are stark. The Malay poverty rate was incredibly high, around 66%. The Chinese poverty rate was significantly lower, about 27%.
Wow, big difference.
Huge. And you saw different economic paths. Most Malays remained in rural areas, in agriculture, whereas ethnic Chinese gradually became more dominant in trade, commerce, industry, banking. Even by 1995, the average income for a Chinese family in Malaysia was still more than double that of a Malay family.
And more recently.
Data from 2002 showed that the Bumiputera, that term includes Malays and other indigenous groups, literally sons of the soil. They made up about 61% of the population, but only accounted for 24% of the top 1% income earners.
Okay.
Compare that to ethnic Chinese. About 30% of the population, but they made up 72% of that top 1%. 72%. Now, that gap did narrow a bit by 2014, but the disparity is still very much there. It's a persistent challenge.
And these economic realities, they inevitably shape how different groups see each other, right? Leading to stereotypes.
Absolutely. It's almost unavoidable when you have such visible economic gaps along ethnic lines. It breeds resentment and fuels stereotypes. For instance, you see in some Malay language writings negative portrayals of Chinese as greedy or ruthless.
And does the crazy rich Asian stereotype play into this?
It does, in a way. While that book and movie were satire, aimed at a specific kind of excessive materialism among some super wealthy Asians globally, the image can unintentionally reinforce this broader stereotype in places like Malaysia that all ethnic Chinese are wealthy, flashy, maybe even undeserving.
But that's obviously not true.
Of course not. It's a dangerous generalization. Sources share stories that highlight the reality, like a poor Chinese Malaysian cleaning woman, an hourly maid cycling 15 kilometers just to get to work for maybe RM35, which is less than $10. Her kids seeing a TV for the first time at her employer's house. That's a world away from the stereotype.
A stark contrast.
And there's also this perception, right or wrong, among some non-Malays, that poor Malays might find it easier to get government assistance than poor Chinese or poor Indians, adding another layer of perceived inequality.
So politically, how has Malaysia tried to address this, and how has it played out, especially after 1MDB in the 2018 election?
Well, Malaysia has constitutional provisions guaranteeing Malay special rights, and there have been long-standing affirmative action policies like the new economic policy, NEP, and later the National Development Policy, NDP. The stated goal was always to reduce poverty and restructure society to reduce the identification of race with economic function.
But the outcome?
The outcome has been complex. While poverty has reduced overall, these policies have arguably contributed to creating a society that's multicultural, yes, but still quite unequal and sometimes segregated in practice. And after the 2018 election, when the opposition coalition won, you saw a real spike in ethno-religious tension, especially online.
How so?
Opponents of the new government, which included the predominantly Chinese-led Democratic Action Party, DAP, immediately started characterizing it as Chinese-dominated. They framed it as a threat to Malay status and privileges.
Even if that wasn't necessarily accurate.
Even if the numbers didn't fully support that characterization, it was a potent political narrative that tapped into those deep-seated anxieties among parts of the Malay population. It just shows how incredibly sensitive and easily manipulated identity politics remain in Malaysia.
Okay. We've really covered a lot of ground here. Started with Jho Low, maybe hiding in Shanghai, dived into the absolutely mind-boggling details of the 1MDB theft itself, the billions stolen, the yachts, the movies.
Right. And then we trace the ripples outwards, how this financial crime slammed into Malaysia's complex ethnic landscape, connecting the dots between the money, the politics, Jho Low's own background, China's alleged involvement, and how it all churned up existing economic disparities, stereotypes, and historical tensions.
It's clear this wasn't just about money, was it? As staggering as the sums were.
Yes, not at all. It was really an event that exposed so much about Malaysia itself, issues of governance, definitely, accountability for sure, but also these really fundamental questions about national identity, economic justice, and how you manage, or sometimes fail to manage, the delicate balance in a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. One MDB held up a mirror, and the reflection was, frankly, deeply troubling.